Hi, I'm Nikki Abdenor, and I'm filming this from my psychology practice in Cape Town, South Africa. The reason for this message is that I wanted to make a confession to you. I am an armless overachiever. Now, you might be aware that there are many armless overachievers around the world. So, first of all, I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm an international keynote speaker for conferences, and I run my own non-profit organization called Nickys Drive. Nickys Drive funds car adaptations for people with disabilities in South Africa. So the reason for Nickys Drive is that I am very lucky that I drive a specially adapted car. And I always joke that it takes hands-free to a completely new level. But apparently that's not good enough. You see, when you have no arms, friends, people you've never met before, love to send you video clips of armless people doing amazing things. So I've seen video clips of armless people swimming in the Paralympics, armless people playing the guitar or the drums, an armless woman flying an aeroplane. And you know what I always reply to my friends and family and random people who send these to me? I'm sorry that I'm such an underachiever. But seriously, it really makes me think, why is it that sometimes people who seem to have such obvious limitations seem to excel in life? And as a clinical psychologist, I really believe so strongly in the premise behind positive psychology. We mustn't ignore what is wrong, but we need to focus more on what is right. So in my research and trying to work out why is it that so many people with obvious challenges are overcoming them, whereas sometimes we seem to have small bumps in the road and feel like we can't cope at all. And one book that I read that made a lot of sense was Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath. So Malcolm Gladwell uses the biblical story of David and Goliath to highlight how if we understand what our limitations or weaknesses or limits in life are, then we can find ways to compensate for them. So in the story, everybody believes that Goliath is going to win the battle because Goliath is large, he's a giant, he's much bigger and more powerful than David. But because David knew that he was so much smaller and physically weaker than Goliath, he became prepared. So David had weapons to fight Goliath. So in the end, David, being very quick on his feet and using his weapons, won the battle. So actually, David was always set to win. So it makes me think about understanding what our limitations are is the only way we're going to ever find ways to compensate for them. So I always believe that I was at a huge advantage being born without arms. I know that may sound very weird, but the reason I believe this is because from the start, my parents and myself, we knew exactly what my limitations would be. My parents had no information on my disability. They had no idea that I'd be born without arms and shortened legs. So what they did was they went to the library. So for the millennials watching, that's a place where they keep books. There was no Google back in my day, totally giving away my age here. But to think about not having that information, but realizing what are Nikki's strengths going to be? And ultimately that was education and having a voice. So I want you to think about yourselves. When it comes to our limitations, it's sometimes easy to see when we have a physical limitation, but what happens when our limitation is psychological? This is really what interested me in a field in clinical psychology, is because I recognized that I was always overcoming physical challenges for my own independence. And then I found out that there were many people around me that were overcoming psychological challenges or hidden disabilities, which makes it so much harder because you need to be so outspoken about what your challenges are, and you need to be able to ask for help. So because it is World Mental Health Awareness Month in October, I want to really encourage all of you to think about what are your weapons going to be. Understand what your limitations are. I know for sure that I've got a long list of things that I can't do. And if I had to focus on all of those things, I know I would be depressed. Try and look at your life and what some of your limitations are. What are your weapons going to be as David? I think when it comes to mental health challenges, a number one weapon is going to be to ask for help. A number two weapon is going to be to access resources. And a number three weapon is to not be afraid of those limitations. Recognize that sometimes those limitations can become your greatest strength. So remember, don't ignore what is wrong, but focus more on what is right.